K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we're expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at advertise@k98talk.org. The leader in talk radio on the Internet, right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
It got up to like $68,000. My heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Don't expect us to admit a mistake. We're paying off election debts to those on the take. Attorney General's lying even while
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson.
All right, folks, well, it is Wednesday. It is July 22nd, 2015, just a couple minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock Central, so 7 Eastern. I am going to be joined here in just a few moments by a returning guest with us, Mr. Patrick Fornari, author of Commoner Sense, will be joining us here in a couple of minutes. Before we bring him over, I do have a couple of announcements to make. First of all, I promised I wouldn't say anything, but I am going to say at least a little something. There's been a really great development with Red Nation Rising. However, I've been sworn to secrecy, so I can't say anything more until they tell you. Because I have promised, but I'm kind of trying to give them a nudge because it's a really great thing that's happened, and I know they're kind of waiting to see, but I'm excited for them. So I just want to give them a shout out and to all of their fans as well. And when you finally do get to hear about it, you'll probably be as excited as I am. Now, before we get too far into a few things, we are only going to take the one break that is usual when I have a guest. So I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor for this half hour, concealandcarry.net. Really easy to find. The word concealed, the letter N, then the word carry, and then .net. Basically, it is your one-stop shop if you are a business looking to promote anything to do with firearms, firearms trainings, or firearms accessories. It is also your one-stop shop if you happen to be a shopper looking for those things. So make sure you hit them up. They have links available for all 50 states and multiple choices inside of those states. So make sure you check them out. I go there often. And Chris and I just spoke the other day during an interview, and much like he pointed out, I've been on their site several times. I still haven't made it all the way through yet, so there's plenty of stuff to go through and look at. I do encourage you to do that. Want to give a quick shout-out to the affiliates. Of course, K98 Talk, our home network, the Spark Radio Network, the network that I own. We also are now carried on Red State Radio every Sunday morning at, I believe it's actually 6 Eastern. For a while, I was under the impression it was 7 Eastern, until our guest that we're about to have on actually reached out to me and made me realize I was wrong. And then, of course, we have AMFM247.com, where this show can be heard every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 Eastern. And we also have High Point Radio out of New Jersey. It is a terrestrial station, low power. I do know they're carrying the show. They haven't actually told me what time yet, though. So hopefully at some point I can get that information from you guys so you'll know for sure. But if you're in New Jersey, I do highly recommend, if you have access to them, turn them on. They have lots of great programming now. One of the ones that we have, that we've carried for a while, that I also know is on there, is Late Night in the Midlands, and now, of course, yours truly. All right, so without further ado, I do want to bring over Mr. Patrick Fornari, author of Commoner Sense. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm doing great, Rick. Thanks for having me back on.
Hey, not a problem at all. It was a real blast. I especially appreciate the fact that you were willing to come back on after I called you by the wrong first name during our first interview. So thank you.
I've been called much worse, Rick.
Well, so have I, but we'll have to talk about that off air. You know, I mean, I do have some terrestrial affiliates now, so at least on this show, I kind of have to watch my language. Some of the things I've been called aren't fit for radio. Just saying. All right, so one of the things that you made a point of bringing to my attention is the fact that you have recently been doing some guest columns for Magic City Morning Star. I have to admit, I just finished perusing your most recent one with Dateline July 19th, which was Pure of Heart. I have to admit, I agree with 99.99999% of what you said, and the only reason I'm throwing that one little somewhat of a percentage point in there is I'm sure if I look at it again, there'll be something I don't agree with, but so far I haven't been able to find it. Just saying. Well, let's start with the part you don't agree with. Well, no, that's what I'm saying. I haven't technically been able to find one, but I reserve the right to point one out later. I mean, I agree with everything that you've said so far in the article, especially the point where conservatives at this point are really frustrated. Actually, that brings me to a point of a conversation I had this morning in an email with one of the other hosts who's full-on libertarian. We were talking about the fact that there are a few conservatives, myself included, that have now started calling ourselves conservatarian, and how that not only confuses him but annoys him because it feels like we're not being true to who we are. One of the things that I've tried to point out to him is one of the reasons why I consider myself that, and I use that label, is because there are plenty of things that I agree with from both the conservative and the libertarian movement. So since I'm not fully one or the other, I feel a blend is actually the best way to describe myself, because there are things when it comes to the libertarian movement that I completely support. There are also things in the conservative movement that I still support as well. But basically, we had a pretty good discussion, and then he realized I was only giving him a hard time because it's been forever since I've been able to push any of his buttons. Because he was like, you know, anybody who uses that label, in my opinion, isn't being true to themselves, and they're also being a chicken you-know-what. And I said, well, that's kind of elitist of you to say that. And he's like, well, you do realize I'm just kidding, right? And I said, you do realize I'm just pushing your buttons, but it doesn't change the fact that that was kind of an elitist thing to say. So I think part of the reason, or part of the way that a lot of conservatives are starting to voice their frustration is they're actually moving away from calling themselves just conservatives, because it always gets pointed back to the Republican Party. And let's face it, the Republican Party is not conservative anymore.
Well, I think your response is shared by many, myself included. One of those reasons is, as I point out in my book, Common Sense, is that the center has been constantly moving to the left since the day the ink dried on our Declaration of Independence. So to find the natural place where a thinking conservative would go would be to gravitate a little bit more to the right/conservative libertarian. And one of the reasons I wrote the article was because I'm getting a ton of feedback from people that say that they won't vote for the right candidate, much like with what happened with Mitt Romney in the last election cycle. I would rather have him as president right now. Would have spared us a lot of grief. We have a Republican Party that's taking a lame duck president and making him a fool duck and sending him out with almost as much power as he came in with by supporting him. And if we just reject the Republican Party, don't vote, don't support them, they will just become an appendage of the Progressive Democrat Party, and we will never have a chance to change them. So I'm trying to encourage people to vote, to say no, fight, stay involved, keep voting people out and voting people in until I would, support the whole replacement of the GOP and turn it into the Constitutional Conservative Party or the Tea Party or however you want to rename it. But the only way we're going to do that is to stay active and vote. Don't give up. The time, the luxury to be pure of heart and say, oh, that candidate's not good enough, that time has passed, Rick.
It's interesting that you say that because you are not one of the only people that I know that are saying that. Now, I have to admit, even some of the hosts we have here are saying the exact opposite. They feel that now is the perfect time to adhere to principles and basically just eventually and I don't know what the answer is because I have to admit, I pulled the lever for Romney. By the end of the equation, I wasn't that happy about pulling the lever for Romney, but I thought he was still the better choice. My issues with Romney started showing up during the debates. When during the second debate he had Obama dead to rights, didn't use it. Third debate, much the same scenario. Again, didn't capitalize on what was uncovered during the second debate or take advantage of what was uncovered during the third one. And between the second and the third debates, I actually kept emailing the folks that were actually in charge of his campaign, never expecting to get a response because at that point nobody really knew who I was. But I kept emailing them over and over and over again, and eventually I actually did get a response. It came from a box that wasn't necessarily labeled, but you could tell who it came from. And basically they told me that at this time we have opted to take a higher road when it comes to the debate process, and we won't be using the information that was made available because that is our choice and that is our decision. I think that is a lot of where Romney's campaign lost its steam because while I like the fact that he's a really nice guy and that kept coming through over and over again, you can't be the leader of the free world and always fall back on the nice guy card because you're going to have to make tough decisions. And I think that's the biggest problem that we've got right now is we've got a president that doesn't understand how to make tough decisions, and when he does take hardline stances, they're for all the wrong reasons.
Well, as I point out in the article, Rick, I've thought this through living in the world of reality. I want to be the president of the Pure of Heart Club. It was very difficult for me to write this article because I agree 110% with the people that are saying things to me like, I won't vote for that person out of principle. I actually agree with them. I want to be in that club. I want to be the president of it. But we also have to deal with reality. And the reality is that we have the candidates we have. We will have the election process we're going to have. And that is the only way to change things is by voting. A potential Hillary Clinton presidency or a succession of future progressive administrations will not get us a better Republican Party. It will create more establishment Republicans. The only thing that we can really do is cast a non-vote for Hillary. Even if you're not voting for the Republican, vote for America because, again, that luxury is gone. If we now vote against the Republican Party, you are casting a vote, in my opinion, against America and for continued tyranny under what would probably be an 8-year presidency of Hillary Clinton. And that's the part that really bothers me. I really want people to dislike Hillary Clinton more than they do the Republicans, even though I'm not in love with either party also. So it's very difficult for me to write this article and frame it in the way that I did.
Well, yeah, and I have to respect you for that, because even you're admitting, look, if I had my druthers, I would much rather stick to my principles and say to hell with it. But at the same time, I mean, you are being a pragmatist, and that, at this point we have to be. We're looking, I mean, and not to sound over dramatic or anything for a moment, but we're looking at the virtual survival of our country at this point. I mean, there's no way around that. I believe that with every fiber of my being, that at this point, if we don't do something to start changing the course that we're on, I don't know if we have 8 years left. I mean, we are so close to becoming Greece on a much larger scale, and that terrifies me.
I agree completely, and the thing I really want all conservative, Republican, libertarian voters, anybody that's considering voting for the Republican Party, the reason I don't want them to withhold their vote is very simple. Political or votes, the person that gets the most votes wins. That person has more political power. Political power can lead to change. It will take years to change the Republican Party sufficiently to my satisfaction. But if you look at the Democrats, it's easy to be a Democrat. You just follow the religion of liberalism. It's much more complicated to get involved in the conservative construct, so to speak. But look at what happened. Obamacare, this deal with Iran, everybody is running around, including conservatives, saying elections have consequences. Okay, if that's true, let's win. Just cast a non-vote for Hillary and vote for the Republican Party. Vote against her. And if you don't vote at all, now you're essentially casting a non-vote for her. So you need to cast a vote against her.
So I just have a question. With the few folks, because it seems like there's a big disparity between who's running on the Republican side and who's running on the Democratic side. So you do keep mentioning Hillary. So I'm assuming at this point that you assume that her actually being the one to survive the primary process is a foregone conclusion?
It's the easiest way for me to frame the argument. And if I'm going to put a face on it, Rick, she's a really good, scary one to put on it.
Well, that's true. Just ask Bill. All right. So, but yeah, I just wanted to double check that because honestly, what concerns me is we seem like we have this whole Bernie Sanders kind of coming out of complete left field, and it seems like he's actually starting to pull up a head of steam. And I don't know which one I'm more scared of, her or him, because he is an avid socialist and just doesn't even deny the fact that he's a socialist. I actually do a show on Saturday mornings with a liberal co-host who's basically having a long-term love fest with Bernie Sanders. For some reason, I always want to call him Barry. I think it's a Dallas Cowboys thing. But anyway, but one of the things that drives me crazy about him is he keeps screaming about that he wants to raise the capital gains tax to 90%. I honestly don't think there should be a capital gains tax at all, because that stuff's already been taxed once. Now we're talking about basically killing investment in this country. And nobody wants to talk about that, and that doesn't make any sense to me. So that is yet another reason where, as far as I'm concerned, we need to put somebody that's conservative in the White House. What scares me is if the popular vote had their way right now, it would be Donald Trump, and I'm not sure he qualifies as a conservative.
Well, we're seeing two sides of the populism coin right now, Rick. Maybe Bernie on one side and Mr. Trump on the other. If you gave me the choice, I would take Trump. And I will openly admit to you that I'm not supporting him, but I would admit to you that if it was Bush that got the nomination, I would have a very difficult time pulling that lever. I would be faced with making the decision that I'm claiming in my own article that I want everybody to make. But I probably would make it, because I think that I kind of have to vote for the country. We certainly don't want to go any further to the left we have, and we might have to take an imperfect candidate. I don't think it'll be Trump, and it might not be Bush, but we might have to put that imperfect Republican in there to begin the process of repairing, then changing, and then ultimately replacing the GOP, which is my goal.
Now, back to that, you did, and I want to back things up just a little bit. Earlier, you had talked about how it's time for everybody to get involved and to vote and to make sure that they're doing what they need to do to make sure that we get the right people in office. Here's my question, and it's one I ask of everybody, and I don't think I've had the chance to ask you it yet. When we deal with the fact that a group like Congress, when you put them together as a whole, has some of the lowest approval ratings that we've ever seen, but if you start talking to folks, although of course maybe not McCain at this point, but in the home districts of those congressmen and senators, and they start giving them glowing reviews and glowing reports, if everybody thinks their congressmen and senators doing a bang-up job, but the whole group has a below average rating, and I mean at this point almost subterranean, how do we expect to be able to make a difference when they can look at everything as a whole and see how bad it is, but they look at their own folks and say, yeah, they're doing a good job? I don't understand the disconnect.
Well, people, of course, vote their own self-interest when it comes to local things. My bigger picture, overarching view is quite simple. If we have a Republican president, Senate, House of Representatives, and the possible opportunity of appointing a Supreme Court judge or two, even if it's not a perfect Republican candidate, that situation might yield the change or begin to take that first step towards the change I'm talking about. And I don't think I'm out of line asking people to cast that vote for the Republicans to make sure they're not voting for Hillary, because some of the same people that are telling me they wouldn't vote for certain candidates actually write me and advocate or say they would support a shooting revolution or going against our current government in armed conflict. And I'm saying, okay, well, that's great. If you're willing to do that, if that's what it comes to, fine, okay. But could you please just vote against Hillary first and see if we can't get things lined up in the big picture? The local politics for most of those people, the question you're asking, their view isn't going to change unless we start to move people through this government, term limits, etc.
Okay, so let's assume for the moment, because I know we've got quite a few people that are listening right now. Let's assume for the moment there's a lot of folks out there that are feeling like I feel right now, and that is basically, this last election cycle. Even though it took mainstream media a couple of weeks to admit it, we actually had what can only be in this day and age termed a landslide with the way the current election system is set up. And yet, even though we now have Republican majorities in both the House and the Senate, and even though they ran promising they were going to do all of these things should we vote for them, they haven't done anything. So for the people that are disillusioned now because they gave the Republicans the shot and nothing has changed and everything has basically not only remained the same, but in some instances even got worse, how do you turn the tide for those folks and make them understand that they have to vote conservative even though we did that and so far it doesn't really seem like much has happened?
Well, first of all, as I said earlier, it's also very difficult for me because I feel exactly the same way they do. I don't want to be fooled again. I don't want to be lied to again. What I'm saying is if we can get the Republican president, Senate, House, Supreme Court judges, etc., if we can actually see change because we voted and got a Republican administration in and start to see some things happen. For example, the Democrats, they can say, well, look, Obama got us health care. If we have some wins like that, people are feel empowered again, is there not a chance that in the future that we will see things like tax reform, a proper energy policy, term limits, all the things that would set the economy and the spirit of America and the American people on fire again? I'm saying we have to start somewhere. I'm not saying cast that vote with all the trust in the world that you are going to be redeemed and they're not going to fool you again. I live in the real world. That isn't what I think. But this is the system we have. And it's not a straw man argument, much as the president does sometimes, where he says it's either like he did with Iran. He says it's either a deal or war. But most people that write me and people that I talk to, it's either all or nothing. They want to ruin the Republican Party and say, okay, we screwed you guys, which will screw the country, or they want to go straight to the armed conflict. And I'm just trying to say, is there not a bridge in between? Can we not just vote against Hillary first? Try it one more time. This is the process we have, and we'll never be able to change the process unless conservatives and indeed Republicans really get political power. And hopefully our politicians would be empowered by our vote and our support of them, and we'll start to vote the establishment guys out and bring the Tea Party people in. The rejection of the Tea Party wins, the momentum in 2010, by the establishment Republicans was the biggest political mistake in the last half century, and I was very disappointed about it. But I'm not going to give up. As I say in the article, what would we all be talking about now if our founders would have given up? I want people to fight, not to retreat.
Well, no, I agree with you completely, and that's why I wanted to pose the question the way I did, basically a bit of a devil's advocate moment, because I'm pretty much where you are right now. I think at this point we don't have a choice. We need to pull the lever for the conservative side one more time, if for no other reason than at this point to fully understand if we give them this one shot and they still don't do what they say we're going to do, or they're going to do, we're going to have to make some changes. But we need to give them that one last shot to see if they're willing to help us turn things around, because it's time for them to start putting their money where their mouth is. Now, you did mention something interesting, and I one of the things that I would love to see happen is term limits, because I think that at this point we have gotten away from the Constitution's and the Founding Fathers' intentions for these offices in D.C. I don't think that they were never meant to be lifetime situations where you run over and over and over again and just keep making money and more money and more money off of the American people. I mean, that's one of the things that had me the most disillusioned is when the last time I had you on was right around the time that all this TPA stuff and TPP really started coming to light about how bad it actually is. And yet they still voted it through, even though I saw line after line from folks like Red Nation Rising about how we were dominating the conversation and getting our points across, and yet they still voted it through. And now, back to the Iran deal, we have all of these idiots in Congress that are now standing up going, oh, we're going to fight this. Really? Because now all he has to do is frame it as a trade agreement, and you can't do anything but a simple up or down vote.
Well, I do offer some recommendations for term limits in Commoner Sense, and as you know from reading it, Commoner Sense isn't a book that tells you what to think. I designed it more as a book to tell you how to think, how maybe to look at this to come to your own conclusions. Obviously, I throw in some anecdotes and my own opinions in there and things I would like to see. But I think that term limits are going to be a necessity in the future if there was going to be such a voter as you described yourself at the beginning of the show. That's just how it's going to have to be, but we have to continue to vote if we're going to change the Republican Party and then change the rules, because the way it is today, the longer a politician is in office, the less respect I have for him.
Well, yeah, and I've actually talked about this with a few other folks. A couple of weeks back, I actually interviewed Dr. Randy Arrington, and he was pointing out, with McCain, that when McCain first started, he had the best of intentions. He was one of those guys that was in there making waves, doing things that nobody had seen before, and now he's been in there so long that he's become part of the problem. And I think that is a big issue. I think two ways to fix the problems, and what concerns me is I don't think the folks in Congress or the Senate or government actually want the problems fixed, because as long as it's broken, we have to have them. But I think the two quickest ways to fix the problems are going to be term limits and get it back to how the Constitution intended, where the folks that we vote for are spending the majority of their time talking to the folks in their districts, doing their work from their districts, instead of being in this stupid bubble that we call D.C. that is basically at this point nothing but a cesspool.
Well, there's something very important you're saying there. The 17th Amendment, there's only a few people running around on the planet that were alive, and that was passed under Wilson. And he basically took the power of states to appoint or elect their senators to represent their states in Washington, and he turned it into popular elections, and their loyalty shifted to Washington, D.C. interests rather than the interests of their state and their people. And that was a big blow to the original construct of how our founders wanted government to work. So you're right, we're not represented properly, and they stay way too long. I'd like to see a 6-year term for president, just so that the president was not campaigning in the middle of a term.
Well, honestly, I think we ought to move to a 6-year term and then have it only a single term, because then they can't campaign in the middle of a term.
Right, exactly. Just one 6-year term. And I also advocated for maybe 2 6-year terms for congressmen or senators, depending maybe if a person was a congressman and then a senator later, there might be something you could work out where you could get a little bit more mileage out of that. After all, if he's a good person, we want to keep him in there. But they're so entrenched, and the tax system keeps the lobbyists there. It's literally time to turn the money changers' tables over in the temple and get things straightened out, because we're not being representative. That's why I wrote the book, Common Sense. The average working person's, the working person in America's voice and vote has been severely diminished. And I just want to get the word out to people about how our government works and how it doesn't work.
Well, amen to that, and I like the reference about the turning over the money changers tables. All right, well, we do actually have to take a break here. This is Rick Robinson, host of America Off the Rails. We are interviewing Patrick Fornari, author of Common Sense, as well as columnist, and we've actually been discussing one of his recent columns in the Magic City Morning News. We'll be right back after these commercials. You guys have a great rest of the day, and we'll be right back with you here in just a second. Sorry, for a second I thought I was leaving you, but we're only halfway done. I'll be right back.
Red Nation Rising brings you Town Hall Radio.
From a single tweet to 3 million a month, our community is a force to be reckoned with on social media.
So don't miss our show, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on K98 Talk.
Our chat room is our co-host, and you ask the question.
Join us and be heard.
So get ready to sound off on Red Nation Rising Radio. No one else is going to do it for you.
There's a wild, wild whisper blowing in the wind, calling out my name like a long lost friend.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
K98Talk.com, a leader in internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98Talk.com.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members, of their families or their children, asking them to deploy, patrol, stay on watch, on point, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to bring them all the way home, to keep them secure, to have their backs for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs do whatever it takes to help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Find out how you can help at findwwp.org.
This is JD.
And this is Stacy.
Join us Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern for Game On. Remember,
lock up the children and the old folks.
Game On, the home of conservative conservatism.
Where no one is safe and no one is spared, not even the hosts.
Oh, that was supposed to be a spin cycle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We love you anyway. Right round, baby.
Self-monitoring
right
Ebola
anyway.
radio strikes again.
Anyway.
Anybody see the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? For God's sake, I need an antidote. Just do your rant. Let's pop out of the segment.
Find us on Twitter at JD and Stacy.
You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Phone calls, we got a pen and telephone to bypass all your laws. Political correctness will replace the Bill of Rights. Support religious freedom, bless you, pray to Jesus Christ. The blessings.
All right, folks, we're back. We're live. This is America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. We are about halfway through the show, so we want to kind of change tactics here for just a bit. We're going to bring special guest Patrick Fornari, author of Commoner Sense, back on the line with us right now. And then we're going to start talking about some of the crazy stuff that Trump's been up to and see what his take is on that. Patrick, you still with us?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm assuming, even though you do spend the majority of your time out of the country, you're keeping up pretty well with, as one of my hosts likes to call him, Trumpy the Clown. Because it just seems like he's always... I mean, you know, my wife and I talk about him a lot, because I have to tell you, my biggest thing with Trump is if you go back about 3 years ago, he really wasn't very conservative in most of his issues. Yes, maybe fiscally, but pretty much everything else, he had liberal leanings. Now, all of a sudden, that has all changed. And I honestly don't know if his intention is to go all the way through the primary process, should he make it. What I do like about him is, as of right now, he's drawing all the fire for all of the other candidates, so they have extra time to get their feet under them. So I think in some respects, he's actually serving a purpose. I think he lost me, though, when he made the statement that he made about McCain. Not because I respect McCain in his current position, but because I will always respect and support the fact that he actually is a veteran. And I think he lost a few points with me when he took that shot. How about you?
Well, like I said, this is the other side of the populism coin. The way I look at Trump is a little bit differently. I just figure that he is grown up politically. He's seen what has happened to the country, has had people knocking his door down for 20 or 30 years asking for political support and financial support and donations, etc. And he finally got sick of it and said, what the heck, I'm going to run. I love the country. I want to make it be better. So I think in some ways he's very much speaking to the same audience that my book, Commoner Sense, is trying to appeal to, and they are responding. Now, with that said, he has had some gaffes, but the thing I don't like is that the media acts like all the other politicians, just like we had just been talking about, that have been around for 40 and 50 years, have never said anything stupid. And his comments about McCain were out of line in the way that they were. I don't know if it was an ill-conceived joke or if he just, spoke before he thought, or how that was. But he's kind of done it again, where he's bringing another issue to the forefront, as he did with immigration. And the reason I think that so many people are supporting him at this point is because they think he is giving the Republican Party the criticism they deserve. And he's running around the media, around the Democrats, around the Republicans, around the Tea Party, and around political correctness, and kind of just going directly to the microphone and to the people. So for right now, that is how populism works. And for right now, he's winning with that kind of attitude.
Now, yeah, and I agree with pretty much all of that. Now, I want to give you a take that has kind of just occurred to me over the last couple of days. And I wonder because he is a lot smarter than anybody gives him credit for. I mean, I'm not a mind reader, but I wonder if this might not have been somewhere in the back of his mind. Because if you really pay attention to what he said about John McCain, isn't that the same thing that John McCain's been saying about other POW MIAs recently?
Well, McCain's whole life in military history and political history is very well documented. He's lived in the public eye like many people do. There's no doubt. You can't take away his POW experience in Vietnam from him. That does make you a war hero. And you can't take that away from McCain. The problem I have is maybe everything he's done since the day he got back. I don't think that, for me, he's not the kind of conservative that you described yourself as in the beginning of the show, and he's not the kind of Republican that I really agree with very often at all about anything. I think I agree with him about 5% of the time if I'm lucky, and those are on very specific issues. And I really have to analyze what he says, even when I'm in agreement with him. So he's, I think, one of those establishment people, along with his buddy there, Lindsey Graham, rather than them asking, or even Rick Perry asking, who I really like Rick Perry, but asking Donald Trump to leave the race. Well, there is free speech. He does have the right to run. He is running. He's doing well. Instead of asking Donald Trump to leave the race, why don't we ask Lindsey Graham and John McCain to leave the Republican Party? I'd actually feel much better about that.
Is there a petition for that? Because I'll sign it right now. I'm just saying. Now, you mentioned Lindsey Graham. I have to say, I mean, I knew Donald Trump had a set of cojones. I gotta tell you, I knew it. I mean, anybody who's made the type of money that he's made and the type of business deals that he's made has to have a set of brass ones. But to give out Graham's personal cell phone number in the middle of a press conference, I mean, even if I thought it was the dumbest idea ever, I honestly have to admit I could not stop laughing for like 5 minutes because I was like, I cannot believe he's literally giving out a sitting senator's personal cell phone number during a press conference. I mean, that takes a set. I mean, it really does. That takes a big pair. I still can't wrap my head around it. Even if I had that type of information, I don't think I would have done what he did with it.
Rick, I thought it was absolutely hilarious. It was a moment, and like I said, he's set up with these people beating his door down, asking for support, and now they're turning on him. He doesn't like that. He thinks that's distrust. It's not loyal. All of those things. And as I point out in my book, in Commoner Sense, that, the fun zone, formerly known as the United States of America, closed the day Barack Hussein Obama was elected. Barack Hussein Obama is the biggest downer and the biggest naysayer and the most negative person I have ever listened, derisive president I have ever listened to in my life. And I think that in our natural American spirit, in our DNA, we're ready to have a little fun again. And if Trump represents prosperity and fun a little bit, again, he is going to appeal to a lot of people, Rick.
I know we have a couple of hippies that are listening right now because I have a couple that tune in on a regular basis, so I have to speak out for them for just a second. Man, you're harshing my mellow. No, I'm just playing. Okay, so anyway, I don't know. I mean, like I said, my thing with Trump is I'm not sure how serious he is. I do like that he basically says what he means and he means what he says. What concerns me is there have been a couple of times when he probably should have at least admitted that he didn't mean things exactly the way they sounded, but he won't even correct himself. Because everybody knew that gave him the benefit of the doubt what he meant when he started talking about the Mexicans coming across the border. He meant the same thing everybody knows. The Mexican government is giving people instructions on how to come across their border. That's what he meant. That's just not what he said. So when he realized that it rubbed a good portion of people the wrong way, I'm not sure why he didn't just say, look, I understand. I didn't say it exactly as it should have come out, but this is what I meant. That's my only problem. Because when I stick my foot in it, which happens quite often, when I stick my foot in my mouth, I'll be the first one to tell you. I mean, that's why after you pointed out our last interview that I called you by the wrong first name, I was the first one to come back on the air and say, hey, yeah, his name's Patrick. Sorry, guys, I suck at my job. I'm just saying.
Well, here's the thing. Whether you and I realize it or not, Rick, just like the rest of the electorate, we've been conditioned to political correctness and very, very polished candidates that have decided that they're going to use this kind of middle-of-the-road speak when they need to, get a little bit on the outside when they need to simply gather votes, whatever their technique is. So compared to the elections of America's past, compared to what the presidential candidates of America's past used to say to each other, because I've studied this, I've read the excerpts from their diaries and from newspaper accounts and history books and biographers. I've read all this stuff. What they used to say about each other compared to the things Donald Trump has said, what Trump has been saying is absolutely nothing. It's so mild compared to what our past was. Now, what was the appeal of those candidates in the past? What you just said. Someone that speaks the truth is saying what you think. Okay, I have people that write me all the time. I love your book. You said what I think, but I didn't know how to say it the way you said it. You put it into simple terms. If that's what Trump is doing, people are hungry for that. We elected a guy last time that was a product. Barack Obama was a product, not a president. So if you want someone that speaks the plain truth, and I'm not supporting Trump here, I'm acknowledging where the appeal lies.
No, I understand, and that's one of the reasons why we spent a few minutes on it, because I enjoy your perspective, because it's pretty similar to mine, and I have some of those same thoughts. And I think that's why Trump is resonating so well with the American people, because we've gotten so used to the prim and polished politician, and that, my friend, Donald Trump is not. So, now, speaking of moving on to politicians, because we are down to about 12 minutes-ish, any thoughts as far as you're concerned as far as a front runner for 2016?
Well, there's you broke up a little bit there, Rick, but if you're asking me who I like that's in the race, we have an incredible catalog of fine Republican politicians, and they are running against not just Hillary or these other people, whose names I don't really know, Bernie Sanders, etc., but they're also running against the media, and the progressive media and progressive wing of the Democrat Party are essentially one entity. So we have all these quality candidates. We have Trump taking up a lot of the media time, and everybody is still acting like Hillary has a chance. And in my mind, I hope it is Hillary, because in my mind, she is the worst campaigner, speaker, and presidential candidate of the last half century.
I agree with that. Not only that, but I think she's the worst Secretary of State we've had in history. And there have been some pretty...
She's no Thomas Jefferson.
But back to something you said earlier. You'd mentioned all of the different brouhahas through history that were our campaigns back in the day. I think a lot of people would be less offended by what's going on if they actually managed to do a little bit of research. Because what's going on now is, like you said, it's nothing compared to the things that used to happen when we had a presidential election cycle. I remember hearing about people that were burning wooden dolls of one of the presidential candidates at a rally for another candidate. They were like chopping it up and burning it and everything else. People would have a cow if that type of stuff was happening today, and it was commonplace back then. I don't know. I think at some point along the way, we've put on a veil of civility in some ways, but while doing that, while we give an outward appearance of more civility, if anything, internally, it seems like we're actually less civilized, especially if you see everything that's going on in the news right now. So I think in some ways we look better, but not much has changed.
Well, it's a strange contradiction, isn't it? As I mentioned in the book a few times, no one's asking you to jump on a horse with your sidearm and run towards the smoke and gunfire right now. I'm simply asking people just to cast a vote against Hillary, okay, even if it's not for the Republicans. And I'm getting trouble like you can't believe because I'm not pure of heart, which I really am. I want to be that person, okay? But instead of us complaining maybe so much about what is turned into a lousy administration, a lousy political process to a certain degree, let's go ahead and recognize ourselves as we the people and see if we can start to see how our participation in our own government through voting, activism, whatever you can do, actually affects how the government works. And this is not a quick fix, and that's one of the things that people get upset about. They said, well, I voted in a couple of elections and the Republicans didn't change. No, they're a bunch of knuckleheads, just like the Democrats, okay? So it's up to we the people to keep fighting, keep trying. Don't give up. Our founders made a commitment to go against King George in Britain, and if they wouldn't have stuck with it, Rick, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
You know, that is an interesting point. And again, I wonder if some point along the way, if the reason why we're having some of the problems that we're having is because we have gotten to the point now where we have so many people that don't understand what it truly means to be an American. You know, I had a conversation a few weeks back about now I don't know if it's an actual true story or not, but there's a story that started going around through YouTube that's been around for a long time, but it usually resurfaces around every 4th of July. And it's the story about how the Declaration of Independence was actually composed, and basically one of it, and if it's a true statement, it understands, or it makes you understand why we have this big issue we have about the flag touching the ground. Because the story goes that basically they were given an ultimatum by a British admiral that if they were to lower the flag or to bring it down, that everybody would be spared and that they would consider that surrender. So what had happened over time is they kept trying to shell that flag and shell that flagpole to bring it down, and people were giving their lives to keep it up in the air. If that's a true statement, then at some point along the way, we have forgotten what it means to be an American. And that's what makes me angry. It's not Donald Trump acting like an idiot, because in some ways he is. But it's his right to do that. That's what it means to be an American. You do not have a right to not be offended. You have a right to basically turn the channel if you don't like what somebody's saying, but you don't have the right to sanitize and purify every little thing that you disagree with. And we have come so far away from that, and we have so many people that have fought, bled, and died to give us the rights that we now take for granted on a daily basis. And we as a people have fallen asleep at the wheel, and because of that, we now have the administration that we have today. We currently have the government that our founding fathers warned us about, and we can't wake enough people up to make them realize just how bad it is. That's what has me concerned.
My book is essentially about the past, present, and possible future of America, but the core idea of the book is about the idea of America, what the real definition of American exceptionalism is, for one, because the popular version isn't the correct version. And you're right, a lot of people fought and died for that flag and for our country. And I have to quote one of my favorite comedians, a guy that's a total liberal, George Carlin, who once said that America is a carnival, and if you're born here and you have front row seats to watch that carnival go by, to watch that parade, he said, whatever you do, don't miss it. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I have to admit, back when George Carlin was alive, I was probably a little bit more of a liberal myself, but I really miss that guy. He was awesome.
He was great.
All right, so we are coming down towards the end of the show. Now, as promised, I do want to give you a couple minutes to kind of let folks know again about the book, ways they can keep in touch with you should they do so, choose to do so. Maybe give them a little idea of some of the other stuff that you've got going on, because I know you've been writing for quite a few places lately. So just take a few minutes and let folks know everything that you've been up to, so we can hopefully help you build a little bit more of a following.
Well, the title of the book is Commoner Sense, The Working Person's Guide to America. It's specifically designed and priced for working people that don't have much time to read or do what I did and read 2.5-inch books for 11 or 12 years and decide to write a small book in plain language and say, I can tell, because that's my roots. I'm just a regular working guy. I'm a carpenter by trade and amateur stonemason. And at any rate, it conveys the idea of America. You can get it at Amazon.com. People can also follow me on Facebook, and there's hours of access to hours of recent interviews on there, which most people don't have time to do, but you can sample them. Or you can follow me at Fornari Sense on Twitter, and I do quite a few guest columns for the online newspaper, Magic Morning Star. And also, you can go to commonersense.net, and you can read my blog posts there. They're very similar to the articles that I put on Magic City Morning Star.
Hang on, my mic was fighting with me there. All right, so we have been spending the hour with Patrick Fornari, author of Commoner Sense, also guest columnist. Now, again, as a reminder, he does have the Commoner Sense book available. It is available through Amazon, so feel free to go check it out. Now, I didn't think to ask, is it... well, actually, I guess it would be, because I think the first thing you sent me was an excerpt from it. So it is available on the Amazon audiobook platform as well, is it not?
I don't think so, Rick. It's available as an ebook.
Oh, that's right.
It's on actually multiple sites, and also if you order a paperback, it gets to you quite quickly. It's not an extremely long book. Like I said, if you're a working person, it's something you can pick up a couple times over the course of a week or two and get through it and get a direct idea of our past, present, and possible future of America.
Yeah, sorry about that. I actually meant ebook and for some reason said audiobook. I think it's because I was just working with one of the other hosts who does an Audible.com's commercial. But
right.
Anyway, folks, that is going to do it for this particular episode of America Off the Rails. I want to give a big thanks to Patrick Fornari for joining us for the show today. And also, as a reminder, feel free to check out his book that is available on Amazon. Patrick, again, as usual, you are welcome back anytime, and it's been an honor, my friend. You take care, okay?
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed being on with you again, Rick. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. You have a great night, sir. We'll be back with you,
you
now.
Too. Bye-bye.
For the remainder of the week, Off the Rails will be off the air. I will be back Monday, but I will be on Red Nation Rising tomorrow.
Screw you guys. I'm going home. Later.
Game over, man. It's game over.
We will keep this promise to the American people.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 $3 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.